couple of things we want to cover this morning. Obviously, the virus being front of mind. Then, obviously, you guys and please doctors here, what was planned like this is discuss the injuries to our World Cup Springboks, and then we can talk about whether even some rugby broke out. We can talk about some rugby later on. Just on the virus. Just on some of the comments I said on the weekend after the game, I was a bit disappointed that those were published 2 or 3 days later, because this is moving so fast. When we had the post-match press conference, we hadn't even seen the SANZAR release. Then there was a relative element of normality around our society, and obviously one was keen for the rugby economy to keep playing. And obviously I am deeply respectful of what the President said on Sunday night and the obvious impact and consequences of our society, respectful of the SARu and SANZAR guidelines. Doc will go into how we are respecting those. So those comments weren't inferred of any form. It was just, one is acutely aware, and I suppose much more aware now what damage this is going to do to the rugby economy and our society as a whole. And I was still the phrase there, we didn't realise how bad it was, we had no instructions whatsoever. I was saying it's pity we couldn't keep playing in some form so people could be broadcast stuff, and that there was something to generate that side of the rugby economy, if you like. That was obviously overtaken by events dramatically over the weekend. Don't forget, when we woke up on Saturday morning, we were still flying to Argentina on Monday. It was still, Cape Epic was still on, and that sort of thing. Obviously, that's a very different world to what we live in today. So we're completely respectful of and grateful for SANZAR and for SARu for their edicts and instructions. That's about the only thing we may have specific questions about that. I can tell you loosely what we're going to do, but maybe you want to ask questions. As I say, Steve, we're going to just completely respect SARu things. So, Doc maybe talk more to it, but these guys, there could come a call to action, and hopefully there is at some stage because things go well. So these guys have to stay conditioned. It's irresponsible not to, and not fair on them either. So the safest gym would be our gym, in terms of we can control the hygiene there properly. And then any form of, there's no team training whatsoever, no team meetings, but the guys can do individual work, whether it's catching high balls or deficit work that they might want to do their defensive tracking by themselves, especially the coach a few meters away. So no team training, but they will still be working. There's no question.
So can we Doc, if you can maybe just explain the protocols and exactly how things are going to run at the HPC, so everyone's got clarity.
So I think what's important is that SANZAR and SARu have provided us with quite stringent guidelines specifically around social distancing. And obviously, rugby being a contact sport, it's very difficult to train with any form of social distancing. So as Davo said, there'll be no team training, etc. However, you've got to look at this virus in the context that the HPC is probably safer environment than anywhere outside at this stage in terms of as a place to train. So we banned all individual gym work at Virgin Active, etc., because you have an unknown population, you have a fluid population, you have no control of social distancing, etc. In addition, we have changed all our gym hygiene guidelines, our cleaning guidelines, to be cognizant of the fact that we're dealing with something that potentially is contagious, but also it allows us to self-monitor within the SANZAR guidelines. There will be daily temperature checks, there will be daily symptom checks, and there will be appropriate management if any of the symptom checks or temperature checks become positive. So it allows us to self-isolate quickly, but more importantly, it allows us to control on a daily basis their contact, and we can work in small groups, we can respect social distancing, and we can make sure that they remain rugby ready and they remain training. But there'll be no team training in terms of that. I've created a policy document for the High Performance Centre, which includes all of those sort of things. We've distributed it to the staff, to the players, to the board, and we've had multiple educational sessions with them. In addition, we've upped the hand sanitizers, individual hand sanitation, individual water bottles, no cross-contamination, no linen on the beds, alcohol wipes after every single patient has been on the bed, etc. So we're running it like a high care unit or a high care facility in terms of hygiene protocols.
Sorry, I just want to ask, does that mean you have small pods of players that you manage and rotate to go onto the field? And is that how it works?
Yeah.
They'll gym in small pods. We won't have the whole squad in the gym at the same time by any stretch. And those guys go on the field sort of almost individually.
Doc, does everybody's staff and players get tested daily?
Yes.
Wow. That's not gonna work.
It is. It's made my life a nightmare, but it's the right thing to do. And I think Darbo's made it very clear, that I think we can only manage what we can manage. And I think by providing an environment here that is safe and secure and in small pods, etc., we're able to continue conditioning, continue treating those injured players, etc., but also making sure we educate about what they do outside of this environment, which is actually where the main risk is.
Maybe you can explain the testing and how that's going to work here.
In terms of
how players are getting tested every day.
Yeah, so every day, basically, the simplest way is that what SANSAR has guidelines are is that there's a daily temperature check. This is just an infrared check. If they're below 38 degrees and they have no symptoms, they're regarded as normal. If they've got a snotty nose or they've got some symptoms and we don't know whether it's a cough, a cold, influenza or COVID, and they've got a temperature, they are regarded as being a positive until proven otherwise. We have a room that we've set aside as an isolation room. They will be provided with a mask. We will take appropriate precautions ourselves as the medical staff, and I will be then taking the swabs required, and then we will send them straight home for self-isolation until the results are out. Basically, these are all protocols that are followed by the World Health Organization and will respect minimum contact with staff, other players, etc. What we've also put in place is that no player will come into the high performance center with any symptoms whatsoever. So there'll be a telephonic consult. If they have any signs, and the 4 World Health Organization questions that we ask them, if they have more than 2 positive, they will be regarded as a suspected COVID case, and they will be sent directly to the drive-through pathology center for a swab. So there's no contact with anybody. They go back to self-isolation, and then if it comes out positive, we will manage them appropriately.
And I presume at this stage, you just come back from Durban, there's no positive cases whatsoever?
No.
Which is really general injuries.
Yeah, of course.
Doc, if we can just deal with general injuries, obviously you got quite a lot of your frontline players all done. Can you run us through who's injured and exactly how long they'll be out for?
Okay. As you know, if we go back to Sia Khaleesi, Sia Khaleesi is recovering very well. He's 4 weeks away from return to play currently. So his was a 10 to 12 week injury, a grade 3 medial collateral ligament tear. The second injury we had was Bongi Mbonambi, who tore off his hamstring. That was a surgical case. And at this stage he's on track, he's doing well. However, it was a severe injury, and he's expected to be out from the time of injury for between 4 and 5 months. Then Peter Steph Totoy, basically he had a medical emergency after the Blues game. He had a hematoma that developed into an acute compartment syndrome. It's incredibly rare. There have only been 43 that have been listed in the literature. It's a medical emergency because if you don't pick it up early, they lose blood supply to their leg and they lose the leg. So within 15 minutes of him coming off the field and assessing him, we realized that he was at risk of this particular rare condition. He was taken straight to Vincent Pallotti, where we had a vascular surgeon waiting, and he was operated on that night. Unfortunately, as I said, it's very unusual, very rare, but they had to cut through the muscle to release the pressure, and they were only able to close that leg 10 days after his initial injury. So he's at home, he's recovering well, and we expect him to be back based on the surgeon's report at around 3 months. And then from this weekend, unfortunately, we sustained 2 big injuries. Herschel Yankees fractured his fibula, so he is undergoing he's basically treating him conservatively, but while he's being treated conservatively, he's got a little ankle injury, so we're just going to clean his ankle out while he's waiting, but expected return to play is 3 months. And then finally, we had JD Schickerling, who has a muscle tear in the arm it's a muscle called coracobrachialis. That's a 4-week injury. And then Stephen Kutzoff has torn his pectoral muscle and requires surgery. So he has a large injury and expected to return to play 4 months.
Dr. Maybe you can explain what that means.
Yeah, John, I was about to say, you don't look very happy with I mean, it's all your frontline players that's gone.
No, this is where I get slightly not frustrated. Firstly, I think Doc deserves enormous credit for Peter Steff. You know, I think had a rugby player lost his leg, that would have been devastating for the game. Obviously, Peter Steff, but the game worldwide. So, and if it wasn't for the timely intervention, I think Doc reported that half the 43 cases had resulted in that.
It was less than that, but I mean,
Okay.
it's still something. It's not common, so it's not something you think of.
Yeah, so each one of these, you know, if a pectoral muscle goes off, or these are all deeply traumatic injury, nothing to do with load. You know, the guys are just, these 2 injured, we just come off a bye weekend. It's just something that you can't explain, yeah. And it's something like Doc would chat to SARugbymag. We had 6 guys who played in the World Cup final, 5 are now, we've obviously spent most of our money on them, but 5 are now out on long-term injuries. I'll see us getting closer and closer. But I don't know how there's a statistical chance of that. You know, it's really freakish. It's because none of them there's not one load, one medical management, training, any conditioning issue whatsoever. You know, you saw CS tackle. You saw Bear Bongi's leg got bent back. Herschel fractures a tibia. You know, it's terrible. And the way so and that's what I'm really proud of this group's resilience. I know there's a lot of, and I stand to be justifiably credit and hype around the Sharks, but I think when we ran out into that game on Saturday, and I say it feels like I'm talking about rugby now, and we heard about our Springbok pack. The reality is there were 3 Springboks in the Sharks pack, 3 in the Stormers pack. If you took 3 Springboks like we had out of the Springbok team, let alone a franchise, we took 3 Springboks out of our pack before we played the log leaders away. I actually thought we showed to lose both your halfbacks by half time, to lose your left foot when the only threat in that game was the kicking game, to lose it 19 minutes in. I think we showed enormous resilience. We're not the Stormers that we were at the start of the season. That's just the reality of these freakish round of injuries. Take 5 World Cup finals out of any team, it's just going to be. So I'm actually proud of our resistance. Credit to the Sharks were great. They had 9 Springboks running on the field. We had 6. They had 6 in the back line plus Fussy. And I think the way that's I think we did well in that fight in the circumstances and showed enormous resilience. You take any halfbacks out of any team with a kicking game before half time, you're going to be under pressure. So it's a tough position we're in. One thing we do have got, and I'm not sure what other franchises have got, we've got depth, and I think we showed some degree of character. I think also it's important. There's a lot of what I've learned about sport. There's a lot of emotion. And they were maybe, like I said at the time, we weren't playing very well and possibly overhyped early on. I don't think we know, that the gap is as disparate as people suggest. Reality is in the competition. If we're a normal society, which it no longer is, so it's Harry Potter stuff, we'd have a game in hand. Let's say we won the game in hand. Let's say hypothetically, and I'm not saying we would have because we are decimated. Let's say we won that game in hand, we got 21 points, and then we've got to play the Sharks at Newlands. Let's say, hypothetically, we showed character of those guys, win that game at Newlands, who's top of the conference. It's not, I think we must keep our sort of really reasonably calm head about it. I'm really chuffed with the resilience of the group. As I say, we'll sit with SARugbymag. I'm going to sit with Rusty later this week and discuss these injuries, which are just almost just inexplicable there.
Yeah, I think you've got to look at, whenever we look at injuries and we look at patterns, there's a concern that is there something we can do better as the medical staff. And broadly speaking, you have overuse injuries, which are load injuries, and you have traumatic injuries. And if you look at the mechanism of injury, there's no consistent mechanism, and they've all been traumatic. So Bongi getting his leg caught in a ruck and hyperextending at the knee, there's no conditioning in the world that can change that. Peter Steff's injury, same thing. In fact, all the injuries we've had, there isn't a common pattern, there isn't a common body part, there isn't a commonality. So to answer a question, around the Springboks, is there overplaying, is there overload? The short answer is no. We've played 7 games, we've had a bye. Very few of them have, Sia's played 40 minutes, so have we overplayed him? If you looked at that mechanism, the answer is no. It was an unusual mechanism with a player who wasn't expecting to be hit. So I think I'm comfortable, discussing with Rassie, etc., that there's nothing that we could have done to prevent it. But obviously we have checks and balances within our own system, and we're always looking to do better and improve, and if there is anything we ever find, we'll address it. But to this stage, unfortunately, it's all traumatic injuries. It's all within the nature of rugby being a collision sport.
Is Jamie Roberts also going back now?
No, he's not. It wasn't the cards because he had to get his visa renewed, and then if he flew tonight, he wouldn't be able to return. But he's decided to stay for he can't fly for personal reasons.
So does he not have to have his visa renewed?
Yeah, he will, but he had to tell the end of April he was going to use this opportunity, just this window now. There's no time deadline. The time deadline wasn't till April. But he was going to use the fact that we weren't playing this weekend as to go back, and he had to fly tonight because of our own international travel ban. But so he won't be flying for a while now.
Okay. So you still hopeful that then you could play again for you?
Yeah, we are. If it's played before Super Rugby resumes before June, I'm sure he will. Yeah.
But to be able to do that, he'll have to have his visa renewed by the end of April.
I know he had to go and get his visa by the end of April. So if he can't go by then he's entitled to return home. In which case he wouldn't return to us if he's not allowed to come back to us. So it's a fluid situation, that.
Dobson, we spoke about the physical strain this thing has taken, about the mental strain in the past couple of days, even how the players manage that and what's happening in the world.
Yeah, I think they're young and naive and cheerful. I don't think they, as probably didn't realise a couple of days ago what this entailed. I think they're still in that sort of stage, but it's not really up to docs educating them medically for their own safety. And I don't want to go there and be the doomsayer and say rugby doesn't exist anymore. Or you know what I mean? It's that'll come. We'll see what happens with more fact. So we've just made sure that they're safe, they carry on training. But it's fair to say they are definitely concerned. They're definitely concerned.
Doc, when you say 43 cases for Peter Steff, is that
reported in the literature? So that means has been reported as a case study. So there could be more worldwide. Yeah.
So how were you able to make that diagnosis?
It's a bit serendipitous. Look, I've been in the game for 30 years. But World Rugby puts us through a very intense immediate care in rugby level 3 course, which is practical resuscitation, etc. on the field, and all kudos to SARugby. They pay for us to go do these courses, and I completed my refresher course only 6 weeks prior to that. So luckily, as I said, I've been in the game a long time, and it was fresh in my mind. So I had the immediate. It was the first thing I thought of, funnily enough.
Alright, so any more questions? Are you happy? Anything covered, or is there anything else?
Just two other quick things. Just that if you see the guys on the field now, we have to flush them out from the weekend. It's irresponsible not to just run them out. They're going to go on a break for the rest of the week, so they won't train again. They won't even come for that program, just while we get all the measures in place that Doc talked about. So this is just purely a flush out. I don't really think we flunked in more training. It's just guys running up and down. And the other thing which I think Duncan's also driving is that we've got these athletes on the books. We're going to keep them as best physical condition we can within the parameters. But also I think the country is in a crisis, and I think we'll use this opportunity to contribute where we can. We have got some plans which will come that we'll communicate in due course. Yeah, whether it's helping elderly get food or obviously within the social distancing parameters, but we will be making an active contribution. There's a nice musical project you might come across, just something to cheer people up and that sort of thing. I think these guys are still, lost in the engine now, but they are role models in society, and we can, if there's something we can do for the greater good, well, if we are going to do it, and that'll be communicated. That's pretty much it. I think that's about it. And quarter to the shots.
Mark, can I ask